Hi everyone, welcome back to the Scrap Zone. I'm Julie, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you my Christmas Slimline card set. It's got beautiful techniques and I'm going to share them all with you. First, let's go through some materials. I'm using this beautiful stamp set right here, and when I saw it, I immediately thought Slimline cards. It is featured here in the catalog for scrapbooking, but I'm going to show you how to use this beautiful stamp set for cards. I love these trees. I'm also going to bring in this embellishing gold thread, some clear shimmer, this beautiful new color, Harbour, and these great base cards and envelopes. They are so convenient. So we're going to start with 4 cards. I've separated this workshop into 4 chapters. So we're going to concentrate right here on these 4 cards because we are actually doing the same technique for all of them. We're going to be using cardstock here for the entire project on both the light side and the dark side. And I'm going to bring in a little bit of gold embossing powder. I find that gold embossing powder is perfect for any Christmas cards. I'm going to pull out my all-purpose mat and I'm going to work from that today, only because I find that it's so much easier to clean up when you're done. I'm going to pick up my image here. I'm going to pick up my little trees. I'm going to use Harbour Ink, and this color is perfect for night skies, and you'll see this throughout this video. I'm going to put the little cushion right underneath. I find that when you have a solid image like we do right here, it just really helps with the stamping. So I've tested it out. Now I'm going to go on my card base. I'm going to stamp 1 time right here on the edge. And I am trying to go all the way down to the bottom of this piece. Now if you don't hit the bottom, that's okay. You can always add a little bit of ink distressing and no one's going to know, but having these clear blocks really helps with this process. So we're going to stamp these twice at the bottom. And I really like the way that this looks, just like that. But we're going to create a beautiful night sky. Now to do this, I'm going to bring in this thin cut here, and this is a 3-inch circle. So if you don't have the one that I've just pulled out, you can use whatever you have in your stash, and go ahead and cut it out from just Post-it note. I like to use Post-it notes because I can actually stick it down where I want it and it's not going to move. I'm going to bring back this Harbour Ink and a blending brush, and we are going to create this really pretty night sky. So I'm going to start right here at the top, and I'm going to blend the entire top of the card with this color, and you can see right away that it's really creating a really pretty scene. So of course I've sped this up here, but I wanted you to see the process of blending all of that color at the top of the card. So I'm going to add a little bit at the bottom where the trees are, and when you pull the mask off, see that? That looks really good. It looks like a moon in the night sky. Now I'm going to take this piece right here, and before I do my embossing, I'm going to let it dry. Those little trees are still wet, and I don't want the embossing powder to stick on them. So I'm going to set those aside, and I'm going to work on design number 2. So design number 2, you kind of need to do the steps, the same steps, but in a different order. I'm going to mark off the center of my card right here, and then I'm going to put my little anti-static pouch. I'm going to make sure that I really cover that up before I use my Versamark, because I don't want to have, you know, all of the little embossing powders sticking where sometimes it just sticks all over the place, and you don't want it all over the place. You want it right in the center where the image is. So that looks pretty good. So we're going to emboss that. So this one here I'm embossing right from the beginning. I'm going to add a little bit of embossing powder, and then I just like to kind of shake it around just to make sure that it really sticks to that stamped image. And I'm going to look for little strays. I'm going to flick off the extra embossing powder. That looks pretty good. All right, so we're going to put the embossing powder away, move the tray away, because we don't want to make a mess. I'm going to use this board here. It's just a clipboard, and someone once told me a while back that if you wrap it with foil paper that it helps with the embossing. I'm not sure if that's entirely true, but I've left it this way and it seems to work fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and emboss this sentiment, and I really like the way that that looks on the red cardstock. So now that my sentiment is stamped in the center, I can now stamp on either side of this center image my little trees. I know exactly where to put them down, so I'm just going to do them on the left and on the right. And I'm going to add here a little bit of distressing on the edges. Now I'm not using the blender brush, I'm just using just a sponge tool. I find that that works better. I'm going to bring back my mask and I'm going to put that right in the center. And we're going to create that same blending effect that is going to form the night sky. So I'm going right on top, right in the center, and then I'm just blending that color all on the top of the card. And when you're adding the Harbour Ink to the red cardstock, it almost creates this really pretty purple glow. You really have to see it. I'm not sure if the camera's picking up on it here, but it looks really, really pretty. So now we've got two cards, two designs, and I think I'm ready to stamp. I'm going to dry those off just a tiny little bit. I really don't want any embossing powder on those little trees. So I'm going to make sure that they're nice and dry, and then I'm going to use my anti-static pouch and I'm going to make sure that they're really covered. I'm just going to go to town on this because I really don't want to have embossing powder everywhere. I'm going to take my image and I'm going to stamp it right here. It's kind of on an angle. So I'm going to press down. And if you've noticed here, I'm not using the cushion when I'm using Versamark. I just found that the Versamark is a little bit more slippery, and when you use the cushion, it almost makes it too spongy. Not sure if I'm explaining that right, but I don't use it when I am doing embossed images. So see here, you've got that really nice sentiment that's going across the trees. I don't have any embossing powders on my little trees. I'm really liking the way that this is turning out. So for the smaller sentiment, and I think you might have noticed in my prototypes that I did stamp the original ones with gold, but I found that adding white embossing powder to this sentiment really, really looked good. And you don't have to heat emboss the gold before. You can do these two steps one after the other, but I really found that the white looked great. I'm going to shake them and shake off the embossing powder. And I'm going to see here I've got a few little strays. I'm just going to clean that up with a brush. And then we're going to go ahead and heat emboss all of this card front. I'm really liking the white and the gold, so it's a preference. If you want to stick with all gold or all white, you can definitely go ahead and do that. So I'm going to bring back my mask, and here I'm adding with my clear shimmer brush, I'm adding this beautiful night sky, like those little splatters look like shimmery snowflakes that are falling from the sky. I was just like it was a really like, ah, moment when I was doing this, because I thought that it looked really, really good, especially on the red. So hopefully the camera is picking up on this, because although the cards are pretty simple, all of these techniques put together make it so pretty. So I wanted to add a little bit of embellishment, but not too much. So I'm going to add my panel to the front of my card, and before I actually glue that down, I did add some gold embellishing thread, and I'm making sure that it is nice and secure. I'm going to pop that right on the front of my card. You can see here I added three pieces of embellishing thread right at the bottom. Now you could add additional bling if you want at this point, but I thought it was great just like this, and it's going to be super easy to mail out, and it's nice and flat, so I thought that that was important too. So let's put this one together, and this is the completion of design 1 and 2. When you're going to be creating this workshop, you're actually going to have 4 cards, because you're doing design 1 in the green and the red, design 2 in the green and the red. And here you see the embossed sentiment in the white, and I think that it looks really, really nice. All right, so we're going to move right along to the next 4 cards. So these 4 cards, I'm going to bring in this really pretty thin cut. Now this thin cut is brand new, and it's for slimline cards. Hello, I was like, yes, I have to do cards with this, and Christmas cards, why not? So I'm going to use the outer frame, and we're going to create 4 beautiful shaker cards. I've gone ahead and I've cut all of my pieces, and when you cut this, you end up with a centerpiece. And I thought, all right, we're going to have to make 4 more cards with this. I'm going to bring in the centerpiece of the thin cuts, and I'm going to create something really pretty. So you're going to have to stick to the end and see how those cards turned out. These ones here are so much fun. They're slimlines, they're shakers, they've got embossing on them. I don't know, they scream Christmas to me. So let me show you how I've put these together. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to add the acetate to the back side of this frame. Now I use double-sided tape for this only because I find, depending on what type of glue you use, it kind of leaves a little bit of a bump on the gold side. I'm not sure what the water reaction is to it, but I prefer using double-sided tape. I'm going to pull out my ruler here, and I'm going to find the center of my card. I'm going to put my mask. So this is the same mask or same mask size that I used in the first 4 cards. It's 3 inches, and I'm adding quite a bit of ink here on the card front. And the reason for that is, in this case, I actually want the embossing powder to stick to the ink, and it's going to create this really cool kind of nebula look. Anyways, I'll try and show you. I'll bring this close up once we get to that part. So I'm going to use the home sentiment, and I'm going to add the embossing powder right to the center, and I'm really shaking it up here, and you can see that it's sticking to the ink. And I'm going to add a little bit more, and I just want to expand that on each side of that sentiment, and it just created this really cool effect. I was quite pleased with it, and I thought that it looked really, really nice. So I'm going to show you on both colors because it does look different on both. But you can see here that the blending is much darker. I actually wanted the ink to stay wet. So I'm going to shake that up, and you can even push it in with your finger a little bit because I do want that to stay on the card front. I'm going to pop those on my little clipboard, and I'm going to start heat embossing all of them. And I just find that they look so cool. So you've got that kind of gold, and you've got the blending at the back. It just reminded me of kind of like a sky burst or something. Anyways, I hope that you can see it because it's pretty cool. We're going to pop these right onto the card base, and we are going to start working on the shaker portion of this card. So before I put my shaker top together, I kind of want to go through, I guess, the process of what I do for the inside. So I am adding a little bit of glue here on the card front, and I will stick down a few sequins. I'm putting some at the top and at the bottom. So because this is a shaker card and it's a slimline card, all of the sequins would fall down at the bottom, and then you'd have nothing at the top. So I just felt that it was a good idea to kind of stick a few in there just so that you have something that's kind of floating. I'm adding these tiny little stars with the sequins, and we're going to put the top of this shaker frame onto the card. I did use the anti-static pouch because I find that otherwise your sequins are kind of sticking to the acetate, and I'm just going to go around the frame with 3D foam tape, and I'm going to make sure that all of the edges are nice and tight. Now we do have an option of shaker window foams and acetate if you prefer to do that. It's very convenient, but I'm going to show you a way here to do it with just regular 3D foam tape. So here you see me lifting all of the corners of the tape that I've just put down. I'm kind of like turning the backing up just ever so slightly, and I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue here directly on the sticky part. Now the reason why I'm doing that, this slimline card, it is a long card to work with, and if I was to pull back on that backing, I would have to be pretty precise when I drop this right on top of my card, and I am not. So by adding a little bit of glue and by only exposing a little bit of the tackiness, if you want, I have time to align the card with the card base and the frame, and I can really play with it. And here I'm just showing you that it didn't go down in one clean swoop. I had to adjust it, and then I just pull back on the tape very gently, and I press firmly on the edge of the frame, and I found that this worked really, really nicely. I was able to line up my frame with my card base, and they look really good. I hope that you like these cards because they are super fun to make. Now back to the inside pieces. I couldn't let them go to waste, so why not make 4 more cards? Now this is a 12 card workshop, and I know that it's a lot of work, but it's early enough in the season that you'll probably get them all done. So this piece right here, I thought, okay, let's use the scallop piece, and we're going to cut it out. That comes with the shaker thin cuts as a set. So I'm going to use this piece right here, and I'm going to cut into my leftover gold foil piece for this particular card. I really like the stitched and the scallop edges. They're really, really pretty. So once again here I've cut all of my pieces, and I'm going to put this card together. This prototype here, you might look at it and say, oh, that's a little different, because I did add those tiny little stars right here, and they are super cute, but they are time consuming. So I'm going to show you a quicker way. Always an option, right? And we're going to use the gold shimmer brush. So I'm going to do some generation stamping now. What is that? I'm sure you know, but if you don't know, when you stamp the first time, it is called first generation. So it's the color in its truest form. And then when you stamp again, without re-inking your block or your image, that is called second generation. So I'm just going to kind of take the extra ink from the bottom of the trees off, and then I'm going to stamp in second generation, and it just gives like a little bit of a shadow, and you've got a little forest of trees just like that. And I think that it looks really, really good. So I'm going to add a little bit of distressing here, and you'll see that I'm not adding a lot because I'm going on white cardstock. I'm actually picking up the leftover ink from my all-purpose mat, and I'm dragging it across all of the edges of this piece. Now, where I live, scenes like this are often seen during the winter time, where it is snowing so much that the sky is white even though it's nighttime. It's hard to explain if you've never seen it, but if you've seen it, you know what I mean. So it's kind of like a blizzard. You see the trees and you see this haze of snow, and it's kind of nighttime, but not really. Anyways, that's the look that I was going for. I hope that I've achieved it. I'm going to add a little bit of distressing here on the colored cardstock. So I'm concentrating on both ends and a little bit at the top. And you can see here with the red, it looks really good. I'm going to further add some dimension to this by using my sponge dauber here and doing all of the edges. And I think that it just adds to it. This little piece is for the sentiment. Again, I can't stress enough, use your anti-static pouch, especially when you are embossing on colored cardstock. I find that if you don't use it, you'll have little strays all over your project and you're not going to be happy. Ask me how I know that. So here I'm stamping away that small sentiment right in the center, and I'm going to emboss it with gold. And before I finish that off, I'm just going to dovetail both ends. I find that by doing this simple little trick, it just elevates that whole sentiment, and it's really easy to do. Now I've got my ink here, and I'm going to blend each of the ends, just like so. And then I'm going to drag it over the top, just a tiny little bit to add a little bit of dimension. Now we're going to pop that front panel right onto the card base. I did assemble the white daisy cardstock with the Harbour cardstock. There's a small little frame around it. But before I put this down, I'm going to use my gold shimmer brush, and I'm going to add stars in my sky. So the other ones were snowflakes. These are stars. I think they really do look like stars. So you can actually use the star sequins, the tiny little ones, or you can just use your gold shimmer brush, and it works just as well. So I'm going to add a little bit of embellishing thread here, and I'm just adding a couple of glue dots directly at the back of the card, and I'm just going to run that or wrap it around 3 times. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3, and those glue dots at the back are really good for holding everything together. I'm going to bring in that leftover piece. I'm going to cut off the edges here, and we're going to tuck that underneath. Not sure what I'm going to do with this piece, but for now we're going to continue on with these cards. So I'm adding glue to the back side of this piece right here, and I'm making sure that I don't have any glue at the ends, because I want to tuck in my gold pieces at each end of this white piece. I'm going to add a little bit of glue here. I'm going to tuck that right underneath, just like so, and the other side, so everything is nice and even. I'm going to pop my sentiment with 3D foam tape, and we're almost done here. Card number 5. So we're going to pop this right here. And I want to show you this trick on how to make my little bows. I am not a bow maker at all, so I thought, okay, how can I make a cute bow and make it easy? So I'm cutting here a piece of thread that is about 5 inches long. I am not skimping out on the length here because I find for me, if they're longer, it's a lot easier to maneuver. So we're going to wrap this piece around the top of our ruler 5 times. And we're just going to trim it off. So I didn't wrap it tightly because I want to be able to kind of squeeze it out. So you've got your 2 little tails at each end. I'm going to just pull this off my ruler and I'm going to pinch it right in the center, just like so. I'm going to grab this piece, which is long, but since I don't have a third hand, it needs to be long. And I'm just going to tie it into a knot. I'm just going to fuss with it until I can get my knot. And I'm going to make sure it's nice and tight and right in the center. And then I'm going to take the little tails, you should have 4 at this point, and I'm going to bring them down and I'm going to snip them just at the bottom. Then I'm going to take my little bow, I'm going to fluff it up. And isn't that cute? And I think it's easy. If I can do it, it's easy because I'm not a bow maker. So I'm going to take a micro dot. I'm going to squeeze that right in the center and I'm going to pop that right on the card. And I thought that it looked really sweet. A cute little bow, and it was done with a ruler. Look at that, looks pretty cute. All right, so we are going to move right along to card number 6. And I thought, you know what, why not? Let's bring in 1 extra stamp set. And this is the For All Occasions, and I'm going to do New Year's cards. Sometimes you need them, right? So you're going to have 2 in this set. We're going to have this White Daisy card front that we're going to turn into a shaker. And I'm going to show you how to create that really cool image at the back. So in order to create this shaker, I decided to use the centerpiece. So it's scalloped. You place it right in the center and I secure it down with removable tape. I'm just really careful when I pull it off the White Daisy cardstock. It can rip, so you have to be nice and gentle. And now you've got these 2 pieces. So this one here, I can use it for the center of the card. And then I've got this nice shaker frame with a scallop edge, and I thought that that looked good. I did use here liquid glue because it is white cardstock as opposed to gold, and that works perfectly fine. So I'm just showing you glue options here because I think that's the hardest part of scrapbooking or card making. Which glue am I going to use? So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to cut all of those section with the it's the Fancy Border Thin Cuts. So I'm using the wavy line and I'm just moving it down that gold piece. I'm keeping the piece on my cutting platform here and I'm just moving it left to right, up and down, but I'm very mindful to keep it inside the plate because if it hangs outside of the plate, you're probably going to break it. So make sure that you don't extend that out. And then you just keep on moving that around until you find different curves in your panel. So that looks pretty good. So I'm going to take all of those pieces and I'm going to glue them down on this Harbour piece right here. So this piece is going to fit right on the back or on the inside of the card. And I'm going to add double-sided tape here and I'm going to start gluing down those little pieces directly on the Harbour piece. But when I'm doing that, I'm leaving a little gap, like 1/8 of an inch. And you'll see why at the end when I do the shaker of the card. You'll see what happens with the little beads. They actually get trapped inside those little curves or the little grooves if you want. So I'm going to pop that right on top of the card base. It goes right in the center. And I was actually kind of running out of glue. I think I need more glue here. It's like, okay, how much glue can one person use? I'm not sure, but I seem to go through quite a bit of it. So here I've got this nice and secure. I'm going to add quite a bit of sequins right here, and I'm adding the larger sequins sequins, first, because these little bitty beads, when you pop them on the card front, they all want to escape. They don't want to stay in place. But if you've got your gold sequins, they'll actually stay in place a little bit more. I'm going to top it off here with these really pretty clear gems. They look like little diamonds, and I thought it was perfect for New Year's. Like, it really has that glimmer and that shine. We're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to lift the little corners, add glue, and then pull back on the backing, and I'm going to pop that right onto the card and add my sentiment right here. So the sentiment was stamped in gold embossing powder. You see, I told you I was running out of glue. And I'm just going to put it where I feel that there's a larger gap between those little curves. And see those little tiny beads? They're all stuck in there. I just thought that was really cool, and I really like the way that this turned out. So I hope that you love this workshop. It was so much fun to make, and as always, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And if you're not already a subscriber, considering coming back for more crafty, helpful tips. Have yourself a fantastic day.